श्रीभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ नारायणः परो व्यक्तात् अण्डमव्यक्तसम्भवम् अण्डस्यान्तस्त्विमे लोकाः सप्तद्वीपा च मेदिनी। I thank Jogi ji for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. What is that? All human beings are born. They live their lives, propagate, and die. The animals and plants are born. They live their lives, mechanically programmed. They live their lives. They propagate their species, and then they die. The human beings also are born, they propagate, live their lives, and they die. That means everybody by birth is like even an animal. But what makes a human being different is the faculty of choice. We call that as free will. This faculty of choice alone makes a human being different from all other living beings. That means if a human being is born and he is just gone, like what the animal does, the Shastra is questioning us. What is that you have achieved? I gave you a chance to be a human being. What did you achieve? What did you accomplish as a human being? This faculty of choice called the free will is not there in the other living beings. For example, a cow. The cow is born a vegetarian. It lives a mechanically programmed life. It knows what it can eat, what it cannot eat. It lives and then it propagates, it dies. But this fellow, this human being, he is born. He lives a life. But he has a choice. A choice to choose things. A choice to eat what he wants. Therefore, he can make his stomach a graveyard for dead animals. He can do this. Because he's got this free will. He can do an action. He need not do an action. He can do an action differently. This is what the free will accomplishes. The Shastra says, to be born a human being is not an ordinary thing. Out of how many probabilities of life you get a chance of having this human birth. Various bodies were there: cockroach, lizards, body of a crow, the body of n number of species. In fact, we have not arrived at how many number of species are there. Millions of them. Now and then I get information of discovery of new species. So many bodies are there, out of which this human body is just one. It's just a speck. And then you have got this great faculty in this human body called free will, where you can accomplish an end to this life, which we call as moksha. That becomes the purpose of life. Moksha is the purpose of life. Moksha means what? Moksha in English means freedom. The word freedom. So freedom means what? Freedom from what? Freedom from back pain is also moksha. So do we mean moksha as freedom from back pain? Freedom from a sense of struggle. Right from birth up to death, we live a life of struggle. I am a wanting person. I want this, I want that. That means I am not at home with myself. The monkey lives his life in the tree. The whole life it spends in a tree. It doesn't ask for a change, or it doesn't go to an American consulate and sit outside for a visa. It lives a life there and it dies. This human being is the one who wants change. And this fellow also lives his life. But if he has lived a life without realizing the ultimate goal of life is moksha, then the Veda says you have missed the biggest opportunity that you had in this entire manifestation called creation. Therefore, to be born as a human being itself is something which is great. And if moksha is the end, we will look into what is this moksha, how to get this moksha in the coming classes on Sunday and Tuesday. But if moksha is the end, then I have to be a prepared person for moksha. I need to be eligible for it. Being a human being, you are eligible for it. That is a basic eligibility. Everybody is born, then they have got a right to study in the primary school. But then you have to also clear some entrance exam wherever you go. That infrastructure, even after joining the course, you need the infrastructure to understand what is going on there. In the school or in the college, you pass a primary education, you pass your schooling, and then you get into this college, the university. When you do a university, you need an infrastructure there. Just because you cleared, it doesn't mean that you are going to understand what the university says. You should have really gone through in the school. You need an infrastructure. That also becomes an eligibility to acquire the degree. If you ask, what is the eligibility for moksha in order to accomplish this mind? A mind which is conducive for this moksha. The Shastra says, well, if that is the question in your life, then you need to take to a lifestyle which will make you, which will prepare you for that. And this lifestyle, the lifestyle that is prescribed by the scriptures is not a very complicated lifestyle or anything. It is not just only for moksha, even in the relative world, all these lifestyles are useful. For you to be a consistent person, for you to be really a man in the society, and not an animal in the society, to be a mature person, all this lifestyle, which is prescribed by the Shastra, is important. When I say it is Shastra, here it means the Vedic scriptures. Or by any other scriptures, Gita or Upanishads. Upanishads means the Vedas or the Gita. In the Gita, Lord Krishna prescribes a lifestyle of Karma Yoga, wherein he says a list of values, 64 values he brings in. Amanitvam adambhitvam, ahimsa kshanti arjavam, acharyopasanam shausham, sthairyamatma vinigraha. He goes on, 64 of them. Ahimsa satyam-akrodha, ragadvesho vivarjitaha. And then he goes on, 64 values he gives, virtues to be followed. But the Vedic scriptures, they design, like even any religion has got 10 commandments. If you ask what are the 10 commandments of a religion, each religion has got. We also have got 10 commandments. In fact, it is not a commandment given by a scripture here. This is the only religion which says that don't fear God. God is not a subject matter to be believed upon. God is not somebody who is sitting in heaven and then watching you to really believe. If I say that, then it becomes a non-verifiable belief. I cannot prove it, nor you can disprove it. Therefore, it is a non-verifiable belief, but a believable one. A believable belief. Therefore, we call it non-verifiable belief. What we present is all that is here is God. You open your eyes, it is God. You close your eyes, it is God. Look at all our festivals. The sun is the God to us. We have got a festival for it. The moon is a God to us. We have got a festival for it. Chitra Paurnami, we have got this. Shankaranti is sun. In the south they call it as Pongal. Sun. The sun is the God, the moon is the God, the stars are the God. Everything here is God, even you are God. My God, what to talk about this? This is the religion. If this has to be understood, if this religion has to be understood, if that has to be discovered, if God has to be discovered and understood, well, you need to have a certain infrastructure for which the scriptures give you a set of 10 disciplines to be followed. We will look into these, each one of them. We call it as Yama and Niyama. Yama means the don'ts. Niyama means the do's. The don'ts is put first because that becomes more important. Whether you practice the do's or not, at least practice not to do the don'ts. Therefore, the scriptures put the placing of the don't as the first one. Therefore, 5 don'ts are being mentioned by the scripture. The first one is ahimsa. This is a word which all of us know. Ahimsa means you should not cause any injury or violence to others. This much we know. Ahimsa starts from yourself first. Not causing injury or violence to yourself first. That is ahimsa. Eating non-vegetarian is himsa. You are overdoing your stomach. Your stomach has to really process a lot in order to digest the food. Himsa. Committing suicides. Himsa. And then extreme tapas. Himsa. All these are himsas. Not to be done. Himsa that is not to be done physically to others. Himsa that is not to be done verbally to others. Himsa that should not even be done mentally. You should not even think the wrong thing for the other person. Whether it is a person or any other living being or anything, it should be avoided. Ahimsa. Therefore, the expression of this himsa is always there externally. How many people, they throw cups and saucers at their house when they are angry? Himsa. You can see that they throw physical himsa. Therefore, you require a certain kind of a management, a certain kind of mastery at that level. And then you need to understand the value of it, the value of a value. This is a value, himsa is a value. There is no point in teaching the children by telling don't do himsa. The children will ask you why. Then this fellow does not have an answer. So he gives one. A value becomes a value to you. Look at this statement. A value becomes value to you or valuable to you only when you understand the value of its value to be valuable to you. Any value. It becomes valuable to me, relevant to me, only when I understand the value of its value. Then I can take to that value. Therefore, children have to be taught the value of its value. Himsa. Here, don't do himsa is what is mentioned by the word ahimsa. Not don't take it the other way. Because I say ahimsa, it doesn't mean that don't do ahimsa. Because don't is put first. It's a yama. Don't do himsa. This is the first commandment which is done. Then verbal. Verbal form of himsa is also there. People get angry. And then they call all the names of all the animals, causing insult to the animals itself. This fellow uses all the names. All these things have to be avoided. These are all himsa. And then you can be a little more sensitive when you walk, when you talk. Certain alertness in the frame of mind would really establish this ahimsa in you. You need to be a bit more alert there. That will accomplish this value. We will look into how to implement the value in the next half of the session. First, let me enumerate the 10 commandments. Then the second one which is said is Satyam. Satyam means don't talk lies. Speaking lies. Why I should not talk lies? Because this fellow says, if you talk lies, God will punish you. That means the whole life God has to punish me. Because that very statement itself is lies. So when you say that, we say that to children because they don't have the infrastructure to understand it. But I don't know if parents have really understood it. By speaking a lie, your knower, the knower happens to be the mind, the intellect there, and the doer happens to be the mind. So when you speak a lie, the knower knows that you are telling lies, correct? That's why you feel guilty. But then the doer does the action. If I tell the lie, I will get this benefit. If this is the case, the knower is never going to be in sync, in tune with the doer. There is always going to be a split between the knower and doer. This is called personality split. This fellow will not be a transparent person. All throughout his life, the fellow who takes to this lies means that he talks one thing, he doesn't mean it. He just talks. His action is not in keeping with his words. So he says one thing, he does another thing, and his intentions are yet another thing. This is the fellow. How are you going to put up with this fellow? Therefore, speaking lies here would in fact increase the split between the mind and intellect. And this is the reason they say, only when the mind and intellect are together, when you have understood God, God is a subject matter to be understood, and it's not a thing to be believed upon. Initially there is belief on God. Later it grows into an understanding. After you have understood God, there is no more belief. Why we say this is, when you are going to understand God, it is knowledge. Knowledge is going to be loaded in the intellect. And the mind has to own it up. For the mind to own it up, it has to be in sync with the intellect. Otherwise, the mind is not going to own it up. He will be reading Ramayana and he will destroy one Anjaneya temple. This will be the fellow. They say this in the south. I don't know, you have something in the north like that. But in the south we say this. Every day this fellow reads Ramayana and goes out and destroys an Anjaneya temple. If this is a fellow, this is all because of this split personality between the mind and intellect. There is an internal contradiction between mind and intellect. Therefore, Satyam becomes an important value. Then the third value, the third commandment, which is prescribed by the scriptures, is Brahmacharyam. Brahmacharyam is having the right attitude towards the opposite sex. That is called Brahmacharya. This Brahmacharya has got different definitions. I'm just reading the basic definition. Having the proper attitude, the right attitude towards the opposite sex in both the ways. Brahmacharya also means one who has got achara in Brahman, God. One who is committed in knowing the Brahman is also Brahmacharya. But that is all for Vedantic students and Vedantic seekers who have grown and who are matured. That definition will go. But here Brahmacharya means the right attitude towards the opposite sex, which is again again here enforced as an important value. Then hasteyam. Hasteyam here means non-steal. Non-stealing here, our scriptures don't stop that you have to break open the door and then you have to steal somebody. That is called stealing. No. What belongs to the other person, you hold it, is called stealing. If you are holding the property of another person, which the fellow is due, that means it is stealing. This is the fourth commandment, the third commandment of the fourth one, in fact, commandment of the Hinduism. Asteyam, a very important one. Here also the knower and doer, that split, that alone is a reason why they say that you need to have this value in you. This Asteyam is the fourth commandment. And then the fifth one, in the last in the yama, the last in the don't, happens to be aparigraha. Aparigraha means not being obsessed with whatever you possess. There are lots of things in this world that you possess. You should know that God has given this to you only to use it, not to be obsessed with. Therefore, may you use everything that is given to you and return it with a note of thanks to God. When it goes away from you, you say thank you. When it comes to you, you are accepting it. This should be the attitude. Non-holding on to things. Things are things. They are born. What is born is subject to going. Everything is born in time. Time itself is born. When time itself is born, space is born, time is born, and all these things are born. What about the things which are in time? What is born will go away. Therefore, this attitude of not being obsessed with, not being possessive to things that you own, that should be the right living of the human being. These are all don'ts. The 5 don'ts which are taught by the scriptures. And now the Shastra proceeds to the 5 do's. What are all the things that you should do in your lifestyle? In incorporating a good lifestyle. The first there happens to be shaucham, cleanliness. Cleanliness is at 2 levels. External purity, external cleanliness, and internal cleanliness. Taking bath early in the morning as soon as you get up. Weekends means they don't take bath at all. I don't know why. The fellow takes bath at 4 o'clock in the evening. Only one bath. If you do this in a city like Chennai, I can understand because there is water problem. If you do it in Rishikesh, I don't understand because river Ganges is flowing right in front of you. This fellow wants to take bath only at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock. Maybe in winter it is accepted, okay, because this fellow cannot go near Ganges. In summer, how many people take bath as a first thing in your life? Only after taking bath you should come out. Because when you sleep, it is just like a dead body. When a human being sleeps and gets up, means the fellow was dead and he is born again. That is the meaning of it. Therefore, you need to accomplish this with your children. I am not saying this as a criticism or anything. You should all know. And train children. When I say train, don't think that only dogs can be trained. Children cannot be trained. When I say they have to be, these values have to be inculcated in the children. Therefore, this kind of an attitude that every day in the morning the fellow has to take bath. Cleanliness. That's called external purity. Wear clean clothes. Every day one has to wash his clothes. All these things are included in purity. And then internal cleanliness also. Internal purity is also required. Do some prayers. The thinking should be clear, clean. Wishing well for others. All these things. Therefore, Shaucham. And Shaucham also includes orderliness in everything. I always, in India, go to house, they invite me for Bhiksha. That is a habit there. So I go there. On weekends, Sundays or Saturdays, they invite. India has also become like the West. So only weekends they invite. I go. When I am in New Delhi or in Chennai somewhere, they invite, I go. And the hall will be very clean. Beautiful hall. Because that is where the Swami is going to be. Therefore, early in the morning, 7:30, they get up and clean a whole hall. Everything will be very clean. Then you have to go to their bedroom or some other room and see all the thing which was there in the hall will be dumped under a cot or something, and then they would have put a bed sheet over it so that it looks very beautiful. All orderliness. Or you will not know where you kept things. A phone will come. Swamiji, can you give me your ashram's number? I will say, okay, write down the number. 1 minute, Swamiji. Then they will go around searching a pen. Because they don't know where they kept their pens. So they go. And I know, if they say 1 minute, I know what it is. So I have to wait. I'll be waiting. It's an eternal wait. And they come after 5 to 6 minutes with a pen or a pencil, something. And generally they get a pen which does not write. So they get this and then they write the number. Then they will say, Swamiji, can you repeat? I will ask, what happened? Sorry, Swamiji, the ink got over. It's all orderliness in the house. You have a telephone there. So why don't you know where your pen is, where your things are? You should exactly know where to locate it. All these things one has to accomplish. Orderliness is very, very important. It is included in Shaucham. If you go to your office and your manager or someone is asking you for a file, which is so important, and he wants it, and you keep searching the file or one paper in the file, we do this, search for papers, because we don't know where we filed it, what happened. The whole place, this fellow makes a mess to take one paper, because he doesn't keep it in order where it is. All included in Shaucham. Even to relative living, all these things work. What to talk about spirituality? That's why I chose this topic. So, orderliness is also included in cleanliness. This is the next do one needs to have. And then the next one is tapaha. Tapas. Tapas means austerities. May you take to austerities. In order to refine yourself, you take to austerities. In those days, they used to do Surya Namaskara. as an exercise to body. These days we give money for gyms, treadmill, yogasana practices. We give a lot of money. Nothing wrong with yoga practice, but to gyms and all we give money. It's all there in a part of the system. Because the world is advancing, it's progressing. Comfort, the level of comforts have gone up. Life becomes easy for a human being now. This has, in fact, destroyed a lot of things. We used to sit down and eat. Sitting down and eating means it's a kind of exercise because you sit once down and you get up. The digestion will be proper. We have dining tables these days. Nothing wrong. You are all free to have dining tables. You can have even what is that? Revolving tables. I don't mind. I wish you should all have that. But I'm just telling you this is an important value. Therefore, taking to austerities is important. Because you need to have a control over things. You should decide whether you want to control your sense organs or your senses have to control you. He goes in a market. He walks in a mall. And there are a few things kept. Some sweets, some chocolate, something is all kept there. The eyes see that. As soon as the eyes see, the taste receives its tongue. The tongue receives its taste. He goes for it. So whatever the mind says, whatever the sense organ says, this fellow puts it inside. No control. No control over any of these things, over senses. Therefore, tapaha. And to have the mastery over the tongue is said to be the most important accomplishment. In fact, if you have mastered your tongue, you have mastered all your senses, is what they say. And this tongue has to be mastered in two ways. I'm going to only talk about this aspect of tapas. There are various other tapas. Coming to temple is also tapas. It's a commitment because you have some time. You make a commitment that you come here. That is tapas. This is a place of worship. And in a temple in Canada, I should see people here. 200 or 300 people coming every day. That should be the temple. That is why the temple is meant. People should come. Women should come every day. We give a lot of time to various things we give. To children, to parents. We go out to restaurants. We go to movies. Every week without fail this fellow goes to movie. And he tells me also, Swamiji, today is Sunday, it's my movie time. In Singapore. How does the Swami know all these things? Because he keeps traveling, people tell. So he tells, you give time to various things in life. 10 minutes in 24 hours a day. Can't you give 10 minutes or 20 minutes for temple? What are you going to lose? In fact, you are going to gain. Whatever you lost, you are going to gain here in this 20 minutes. And therefore, tapas, tongue control. This tongue control, the tongue can be mastered in two dimensions. It has to be mastered. While speaking, you should know what to talk. At the appropriate place, you should talk only the right thing. What to talk. This fellow goes to a death ceremony, a funeral, and he talks about his birthday celebration. How will it look like? So what to talk? It's not enough if you know what to talk. You should also know when to talk. At the right time, you have to talk. When to talk. And then how to talk. That also needs to be mastered. That also needs to be learnt. How much to talk? There are some people, when they start, they don't finish. They've got finishing problem. They will say, not the last but the least, and then they will keep talking, dragging on and on, because they don't know how to finish. So how much to talk? And where to talk? What to talk? When to talk? How to talk? How much to talk? Where to talk? And finally, whom to talk also. What you say may be right, but you should know whom to talk, whom you are talking to. That also is required. So these 6 W's of talk, they say. In fact, there is 4 W and 2 H. But still they say 6 W's. I don't know why they call it as 6 W's. This is what they say. All used in management terms. This gives you a mastery over your talk. Then the second dimension in which your tongue has to be mastered is in terms of eating. The tongue is an instrument which has to be used by you, and not the tongue is using you, okay? You should not allow the tongue to use you. You should use the tongue. When I want to eat, I eat. Not that when the tongue is asking for it, I go for it. You should be the master, and the tongue should be an instrument which is serving you. Then there is control over things, for which we practice a lot of disciplines like Ekadashi. On Ekadashi, we follow Upavasa, which may be possible, may not be possible, but it's all done, Upavasa, where you can restrict your diet in a certain way. You may not, I'm not asking you to, starve on an Ekadashi day or anything. You can eat some fruits without touching rice on Ekadashi. All these will give a tremendous control over your tongue. And then control over sleep, Shivaratri. That's a day where you have to really chant and sit and be awake on a Shivaratri. All these things are meant for managing your senses, mastering your sense organs alone. Therefore, austerities in various forms are all meant. All forms of Nama Sankirtana, Bhajan, everything falls under tapas. The bhajan that he does is one of the best ways to get absorbed in yourself. Bhajan can take you away from this world. You get absorbed during the bhajan, where you accomplish a certain sense of satisfaction and happiness. For what reason are you happy during a bhajan? What did you accomplish in a bhajan? Did you get some money? 500 crores was there in your bank, therefore you are happy in bhajan? What did you accomplish? All these indicates, they all show that happiness is not resting elsewhere. Happiness is not in money or whatever you are seeking. It is within yourself. It's coming. The source of happiness happens to be you yourself. For these things alone, this bhajan, Nama Sankirtana, everything is meant. Therefore, that is also one form of tapas, because there is a commitment there. You commit yourself, you come all the way from your house, spend some time regularly. Therefore, it is also tapas. And then the next thing is svadhyaya. Hello, a clock here. Is that working or? Okay. Okay. Swadhyaya. Because I am seeing the clock, it's not moving. Then I'll be talking. Anyway, Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means, it is said, Swadhyayo adhyetavyaha. Every day, in those days, in my houses, in our houses, the chanting of scriptures, the study of scriptures was mandatory, was compulsory. But these days, we are not equipped with these things. At least, the scriptural studies like Bhagavad Gita chanting, you can get together and do Parayana of Vishnu Sahasranama, Lalita Sahasranama. All these Sahasranama, Parayana, wonderful, splendid things. If you look into their meanings and all those things, it's nothing equivalent. No knowledge is equivalent to that. And all these things and collectively it has to be done, not one person. Whether it is in a temple or at your homes, dedicate some time for all these parayana. That is called adhya, that is called swadhyaya. Studying the scriptures. In fact, you should have one session here for this, in the temple. Gita, Vishnu Sahasranama, Lalita Sahasranama, Saundarya Lahari. All these, maybe need not get into some difficult stuff, but the basic things. A few stotras can be taught to children. Even for 5 minutes, if that stotra is there, let the child go and recite that every day. This is the next commandment. Swadhyaya. And the final one is Santosha. Santosha is being happy with what you have. You earn money. In the initial part of Santosha is in 2 dimensions. The first dimension is in the initial part of your life, you be a karma yogi, earn money, have money, no problem. But with whatever you are possessing, may you have a certain kind of satisfaction, a tripti towards what you have. Only if you have tripti, then you can do dhanam. Therefore, dhanam comes only from this inner satisfaction. People who don't give means the fellow is not contented. That is the meaning of it. Only when the fellow gives means he is happy with himself. Therefore he gives. Contentment. Contentment with what you possess. But you can earn as a karma yogi. Later there will be a stage when you will grow to a stage wherein you will have contentment in earning also. You will say, this is enough. What I have earned is enough. Let me earn some God's grace. This is earning. This is the second form of tripti. The real tripti. That is where it is. Therefore, you are born an animal man. Everybody is an animal by birth. If you possess all these things, you become a man. 9 of them are over now. Then there is one more. The last one is What is that? The last one is Ishvara Pranidhanam. Ishvara Pranidhanam means surrender to the Lord. It is not any kind of other religion's teaching that I am talking here. You have to surrender to the Lord. If you don't surrender, the Lord will punish you. God will punish you. Don't ask any questions. This is not the type of surrender, physical surrender here. Surrender here means recognition of the Lord in everything. You should know that there are some laws acting for every result of an action. There are laws. You do an action, but you don't get its result. Sometimes you get more than what you expect. Sometimes you get the opposite of what you expect. Sometimes you get what you expect. Sometimes you get less than what you expect. Correct? Only these four things are there in a result. There is no need to be anxious of the result because you can accomplish only these four types of results. So in all these four types of results, what brings in the result is governed by various factors, which we call as the law of action. We call it as karma, law of karma and all those things. The laws govern. Law is Ishvara. Those laws, that order is God. And then there is another law which makes this law of action integrate with the action. Recognition of that law. That there are so many unseen factors which are not at my disposal really to change the result of an action. Really makes you accept the result as it is. Suppose you are a diabetic person. You cannot take sugar, you are type 2 insulin fellow. You cannot eat even a little of sugar. I give you some laddu. What will you say? Swamiji, I cannot have laddus. I am diabetic. Then I tell you, this laddu is from Tirupati. What will you do? You will show your hand. Why? Tirupati laddu has no calories, not made of sugar. Tirupati laddu means what? The blood knows it is from Tirupati, therefore I will not do anything. Is it the case? Tirupati laddu is also sweet. But what happens in you is an attitudinal change there. You change the attitude. When I say it is from Tirupati, you accept it as a result from Ishvara, for prasada of Ishvara. That Ishvara prasada buddhi. That takes place in your inner mind. And when it is a prasada from Ishvara, will you complain? Swamiji, they didn't put a lot of elachi this time. Will you complain like this? In a prasada. If this is the attitude towards every action that you do, where is complaint, you tell me? Because the result of every action comes from Ishvara, from the Lord. Therefore, there is no murmuring or grumbling or any kind of sound that you need to really give there. You accept the result as it is. You did what is to be done. While acting, you had the free will, you did everything to change it. But when the result comes to you, you gracefully accept it as the result of the Lord. This is like traveling on a Kantasa. Kantasa is not there here. It's like traveling on a Mercedes Benz. The road has got a lot of speed breakers, but then the shock absorbers are strong. That is Ishvara Pranidhanam, a lifestyle. Following a lifestyle of Ishvara Arpana and Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. Accepting everything that comes to you as a prasada. Which means that you recognize the Lord's hand in every action that you do. This recognition of Lord is called surrender. It's called surrender. Surrender here is not anything like physically you surrender to God and then you have to give everything to God. No. When you accept everything is there in the scheme of things. That law has, some law, whatever law has acted, has brought me this result. That is God's. There is some God's hand in it. Then there is no problem. You are not hurt. You are not guilt. You don't have any guilt. Both hurt and guilt are for ego. Hurt also is for the ego. Guilt also is for the ego. The ego is not affected in any way. However, they say surrender the ego. This is the meaning of it. Ishvara Pranidhan. All these 10 constitute the 10 commandments of our religion. If one has taken to this and mastered this, one has got these values in him, then he is a man, fit to be a God man. God man is not in the dress. God man is in your living. Right at home you can be a God man. Staying where you are, staying at your jobs. Because I said that God is something that has to be understood. If this has accomplished, if you are a man, for this fellow, the teaching of Veda, the teaching of scriptures, whatever I have told you is not the teaching of scriptures. The real teaching of scriptures is all that is here is you. That becomes a walkover. Otherwise, whatever you teach, the fellow will shake his head in the class and he will go back and he will say, Swamiji, I feel good at the class, but when I go out, I am again the same person. Because the mind is not able to own up the truth, own up the fact. The mind is not together with the intellect. Accomplishing the mind and intellect togetherness is the first stage which these 10 commandments do. This is a lifestyle. The most difficult thing is to convert yourself from an animal man to man. Man to God man is just only one leap. You just have to have if you are a complete man, not Raymond's. If you are a complete man, you look at it, you will understand what is God. This is the teaching of the scriptures. The time is over. And there are 10 values which are prescribed. You can take one commandment each month and practice. January I should not have any worry. Therefore, I will take one, ahimsa. February, I am going to practice satyam. Like this each day. Each month I practice one value. 10 months. And then what to do in the 11th month? 11th month, I give up one non-value in me. That is the project in the 11th month. And the 12th month, I acquire one new value which is not there in this 10. I try to acquire that. This is how 1 year has to be spent. Like this, if you spend 3-4 years, you will get this. All the things inculcated into your system. In order to get this also, there you need some techniques. You can use any technique you want. I will just tell you briefly what it is. Generally, the scriptures mention auto-suggestion. Early in the morning, you can get up and then you can say, today I am going to practice ahimsa. You can even write it down. 25 times or 30 times you can write it down early in the morning. And at the end of the day, do an introspection into your actions. See today, while before going to bed, or while in the bed also you can think of it, how many times I have failed. You will find only one time you would have used it. First time when you do. Over a period of time, you will find slowly it will gradually getting increased. And this can happen in you only if there is an auto-suggestion in the morning and an introspection of it in the night